some great games on the board here for us. We're going to start things off. Taster's choice, as we expect. Some LeBlancs, some Rengars. They won't be traded actually back and forth this time. Maybe the Rengar does get left up. We'll see how they use that. We'll see how they focus the jungle with that Graves as well being banned.
One of the only bans I really feel like you must do red sign now is kind of Varus. Some teams do still leave it up, but Varus is super high priority ban. And besides that, it's kind of player's choice, right? Yeah. You can target ban people, you can ban out things that are good against the composition that you want to run, but there's a lot more flexibility, and I think that is something that does advantage the teams which are more practiced with different comps, which can run different styles, because it is so hard to pick and ban against these flexible players.
Yep. So Varus out, Rise now. We have seen Keane trying to pull out some crazy stuff in that mid lane.
Yeah, Keane is a player who has been known for his flexibility, for his off-meta picks, and maybe now in this new patch is the time where he can finally start to show those and have some success. But it's tough to make those picks work against a guy like Bjergsen, who not only is at the top of the league in mid lane, playing so well, but he also plays a massive amount of solo queue, so the less common professional play picks will not take you off guard.
That's actually a very good point. You're used to seeing the timings, the spacing you need to have on some of these champions, and it does not catch you off guard.
Exactly. If you only scrim, then you're only used to the pro meta.
Yeah.
But when you do play a lot of high-level solo queue, you get to play against the one tricks, the people who are playing Talon and Ahri and these different picks that you don't get to see as much in pro play.
So the Elise getting picked up much more here in the jungle that we have been seeing with some of the changes.
Yeah, even with Rengar open, I think we're just going to see a quick Shen-Rengar combo coming out first round from TSM. I would be surprised if the third pick is not going to be that Rengar from them. Obviously, there are other jungle picks. You don't need to lock your jungle in the first round, though, for TSM, because Ssumday already has locked in Elise, so they're not going to take another jungle.
So we already have the Ashe initiation, and back up for that initiation if somebody else can follow with Hauntzer. Lod picking up the Ezreal, looking to stay safe for himself. Not necessarily winning lane, but not necessarily a losing lane if they keep themselves safe. They won't crush it, but they don't need help from what might be Chase's Elise. And the same thing for Ssumday on that Renekton.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to see this be a very safe pick on the Ezreal, so it should be Rengar coming in for Svenskeren. They'll take their time to talk about what they want to do in the next phases, even though they knew they were going to already lock that in. Ezreal can be pretty strong in lane, especially when paired with another poke support, such as Nami. You can poke out and bully people in, but it's interesting to see that Jhin goes completely through pick and ban. That is somewhat of a new trend, as Fervor has been buffed. It doesn't really benefit from that, and lethality items are not quite as strong as they once were.
Jace ban going over to Team Dignitas. See that they will start to focus Keane in the mid lane, actually. I was wondering, definitely get Jace off the board, but Xpecial as well has been having some great counter engages for the team, really setting them up nicely in fights. Unfortunately, they're not coming out on top of those, but really opening up a chance for them to just blow the game wide open.
And there's a key reason I think that the Jace ban is pretty intelligent here,
and
it's because Dignitas has selected an AP jungler, right? So they would not be opting into a full AD composition if they actually went for the Jace mid, and that is something that gives more flexibility to pick AD mid laners, and is why TSM could say, hey, that's a high priority AD mid laner, let's take it off the table.
Syndra for Bjergsen.
Yeah, you just can't give Bjergsen Syndra. He's been so good at the champion for so long. Yesterday, completely smashing against CLG in Game 2 on the Syndra, completely took over that game, made it look pretty easy. Tom Kench getting taken off the table for TSM makes a lot of sense as well with the kind of composition that you're trying to run. You have the Ashe arrow, which he denies. So they're essentially knocking out things that would disrupt their composition now in the second round.
Looking for what support Biofrost will have come into the game. Looks like easy shields for the rest of the team going through. Stack a few of those on and keep everybody safe.
And Karma pairs well for a number of reasons. Karma Ashe, I mean, Ashe is one of the best pushing ADs, so you're getting one of the best pushing supports, if not the best pushing support. You queue the backline, you throw out a volley, those minions are going to die very quickly. You will be able to push in your opponents and bully them out in lane, plus speed ups for Shen, for Rengar with the ultimates. That is incredibly powerful. So Karma has a lot of synergy both in lane and with the overall team composition.
Yeah, go button it at 6 here for TSM if they really need to make something work from a hesitant early game. Cassiopeia locked in for Keane. Looks like he'll be trying to spit out some damage from the mid lane this time.
And I think, honestly, the draft for both sides has been pretty
quite well.
intelligent, right? You know, Cassio is being picked. Normally, you'd be like, ooh, you got to watch out for Syndra, you got to watch out for Ori. But they had already taken these sorts of counters off the table. So while Bjergsen still can have his choice in the matchup, the traditional counters or lane advantage opponents have already been kind of taken out.
I like this pickup by Xpecial as well. Obviously, it's a Thresh, but really he can just focus on saving Keane in these fights if it happens. Like we said, Lod can stay safe. You're safe on an Elise, you're safe on a Renekton. You can focus on the guy who doesn't have that disengage or the ability to get out of a fight.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And if you can keep the Cassiopeia alive, puts out such high consistent damage, this is another one that can be tough for Cass because of the long range.
Right.
Really can outrange your opponent and bully them out in that way. That said, there are certainly ways to deal with it. And if Bjergsen gets caught, there's a lot of CC he may want to run Cleanse here against Elise, Thresh, and Cassio. If you get hit by those stuns, you can very quickly go down as an Azir.
So what are we looking at from Dignitas here? What will Chaser need to do to kind of disrupt Svenskeren? We say he may not need to go to Ssumday. He may not need to go to the bot lane. What can his focus be here in the early game?
I mean, I think you can get very aggressive, and they have actually drafted for a good top lane diving type composition. They may be going right back to that. That said, Thresh has some of the best gank assists in the game. True. So you can go bot lane, you can go top lane. The Renekton Elise dive is incredibly powerful at level 3. It's incredibly powerful at level 6. It's very, very strong, so Hauntzer's going to have to play around this. I would say that it's Ssumday's job to shove in his opponent. It's Xpecial's job to kind of posture and be aggressive so that the bot lane can't be pushing in there, and give Chaser the ability to roam around the map and choose what's best for him, whether it's counter jungling or ganking. His lanes need to do well early.
All right, well, we'll see if the lanes can free up Chaser to do things around the map. Hashtag Digwin, hashtag TSM win. A 9-2 TSM feeling very great in the standings. Dig at 4-7 right now. Very close to Echo Fox with that record, and towards the bottom with Envy and Liquid. So they really need to make a move here in the second half of the split. Things need to start happening. A tough week here as they have to go against TSM now. And we'll see how they fare as we are about to be on the Rift.
The standings really are tight in the middle of the pack in the NALCS this year. When you look at the teams that are even up towards near the top of the table, there's teams with like 6 wins. Dignitas is at 4, but they're not out of striking distance of teams like Echo Fox and P1 and even CLG. They just need to start picking up some of those wins.
Start things off. A line of scrimmage seems to be the bee's knees for everybody.
It certainly does.
Keep it safe.
One thing I always enjoy about watching in bot lane in matchups like this is when you look at the actual champion abilities, the Karma and the Ashe should very easily outpush their opponents. Where it kind of gets a little bit mixed up is that Thresh provides so much threat if you can maintain bush control that sometimes they can't actually utilize their abilities to have that push, even though their kits are better for it, right? You know, Thresh controls the bush. Karma and Ashe sometimes have trouble even stepping forward to go for that because of the threat of an all-in. So they always have to show respect to that. And when Thresh can really play well around the bush control, they can take over a lane.
We'll keep an eye on the bot side for especially level 2s. See if there's any kind of push engage there once they get hook and flag.
Yeah. And lane ganks are exceptionally powerful with the Thresh and the Elise. That makes warding for the ganks much more difficult. You have to look for deep wards, because if you throw one in the river, Elise walks up the lane, you have a flash, flay, plus lantern from that Thresh, and in comes the Elise. It can be really tough to escape.
So we've seen recently a little help on the Raptors, and Xpecial will get a little bit of assistance while Lod plays Sentry at the Tri-Brush. Things are off and running here.
It is a good start as you get the extra XP, but look at how much damage he took, even with a leash. So that is kind of the bit of a trade-off there. Obviously, still does have his smite available and will be able to heal back up, but unless you have an AoE leash, this is not a start I would recommend you doing in solo queue. I think it's something where, you know, if you have an Ahri mid and she throws a Q over and you have Maokai stacking saplings and stuff like that, it's fantastic.
Right.
But if you don't have that AoE to help you, even as an AoE champion like Rengar, you take a ton of damage and can be vulnerable.
Bjergsen already pushing Keane up under the turret as you would expect in the Azir matchup. See if he can keep him pressured there and draw Chaser's attention. That's one thing TSM is also very good at doing, is you see in the bot lane, volleys have pushed up Lot and Xpecial. Not necessarily a call for help, but each of those lanes is slowly pushed. They will reset, but this is where the TSM loves to stay, because then you give the other jungler a lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Makes their decisions much more difficult, because when your lanes are pushed in, you can't really go for counter jungling, since the other team will always get there first.
Ooh. Keane with a bit of aggression there. Bjergsen not able to fire back with the auto attacks as he's mainly clicking away from the fight.
Look at how Bjergsen is cheating to the bottom side, though, knowing he has support there. And if Keane does not show respect that this is the weak side of the jungle, as his jungler is top, he could get ganked.
That's very smart to know. It's got to feel good when you see you could be getting first blood. Oh, I'm going to be up on him, but he knows, probably thinking he has exhaust as well. There's a flash there. Not to commit too hard.
Now, this is something that they could look to do. A level 3 gank is that dive we talked about, but it is very risky. We'll see if they go for it. I think they're going to. They're pushing in the minion wave, and they're going to reset and then go for the dive again. This is so smart. We'll see if they can pull it off.
What a great bit of damage to start this off. Volatile Spider still attacking from outside range. Chaser waiting for that burn of red buff to wear off. And they're just choosing now. They have all the time in the world to work with. It's going to be Ssumday taking it first. Slice out, he'll be fine. It's going to be a repel. And Hauntzer has actually held his breath, and he will stay alive.
So Dignitas did so well being patient there for so long until the taunt was missed, but they actually went into the parry zone. If they had waited for the parry zone to go down as well, I think they get that kill, but that mitigated almost all of Renekton's damage. So well done, I think, by both sides, not giving up too much, applying some pressure.
Still incredibly hard to dive, even giving up Chaser to try and get that execute on him, and they could not get enough damage. Teleport back in quick from Hauntzer so he can make sure he doesn't lose anything here on the cannon wave. It's going to be Ruby Crystal to 2 Dorans for Ssumday.
And so Ssumday did get a better buy off that, and they were able to deny some of the wave. So even though it didn't work out, there are still some advantages there. Trading after a TP is actually extremely important. Ssumday is moving kind of far up. He's trying to clear out the minions so they will fight with him. Very smart by Ssumday.
There's Spirit's Refuge, gets it back. That's what saved his life the first time, but Hauntzer was pulling down to stay out of that minion wave, and then Ssumday found the fight he wanted.
Oh, Sven has been spotted. Chaser's just walking past him, though.
Good bit of action here in the early game. The repel's in. Is that the pull for Svenskeren? They might have got him on the bait, and it is going to be Keane sinking his fangs in. Remember, this was an exhaust blow now by Bjergsen. There's the flash, and Keane has had control of the mid lane now, just about the entire time.
There is that early advantage from the Elise. Ssumday is pushing, as we said he needed to do. That gives them control of the top side, and they pull off the play, get first blood, and Bjergsen summoners.
Now that we have maybe an action in the break, hang on, going for Hauntzer. The fight's there, Spirit's Refuge to save him. He's going back for the fight. The second repel to save Chaser's life within the last minute. And Hauntzer stays alive once again.
Even just that play, though, Ssumday's going in.
Flash forward, slice the dice. He doesn't get the W on, and there's no stun to call for Ssumday. What an intense early game. Dig looks excited. I think we have a second. Let's break back to Kobe. He was able to connect with Cop after picks and bans for Dig.
Ssumday needs to be careful.
Thanks, Riv. I did just catch up with Cop. Sounds like you guys are having some action, though. All right, Cop said he was very disappointed with his own drafting yesterday, and he chalked it up a lot to their misleading scrim success that they had, and so they kind of viewed the game in a little bit of a warped way. He feels like it's been a bit corrected now. Today, he was actually very happy with their draft. Targeting Bjergsen was definitely their main priority. He thought TSM very clearly play around mid and jungle invades a lot, and so that played out well for them. Plus the AD carry, rise in priority on Ezreal. Asked him a little bit about that, and it's just about the mid-game power spikes there and scaling for him.
Yeah, a lot of good insight there from Cop, and I think they should be happy with their draft. What they're not going to be too happy about is the fact that after all the pressure topside, the first death from a top laner is actually on Ssumday, and dying without TP is so bad because he loses the full wave of experience, he loses the kill experience, and he loses his advantage topside. And that is something that they put so much priority on, both in draft and in play. So if Ssumday falls behind there and cannot bully early, he will get outscaled by the Shen.
Doesn't look like it's too rough for either TSM or Dignitas bot lane here. We have seen a bit of a push for Dig under their turret and a bit of CS behind. They should be able to make it up. we do see that focus again towards Ssumday in the top side. Like you said, it keeps going. Will it pay off again? It seemed to have fallen behind with the third repeat gank.
Yeah.
Chaser making moves, though. He's trying to make things work.
I mean, he has the Moby Boots Elise. You must be out on the map making plays happen. And you have to keep the pressure up non-stop. You can't just say, okay, great, I made a few ganks happen. Now I get to sit back and farm with your Moby Boots. You do not have that luxury. Svenskeren will out-farm you very heavily. As you can see, he's already leveled up despite putting on less pressure. So the onus is on Chaser to keep going. When you go for this sort of build, you must gank and you must gank often. He's now 2 levels down.
Seems like they could be feeling the pressure. Hauntzer pushed up through his turret, so they may not get to stand united out of this. It looks like they are just going to pull off the gank for now anyways. Things are a little too quiet on the home front to try for an engage. And Hauntzer to clean up minions here in the top side. Having a great game.
Yeah, and it gets tough because their time to really bully their opponents was pre-6, right? We talked about that, but now that Rengar is over 6, Shen is over 6, you go for a gank, Shen ults in, Rengar ults in for the counter gank. That's something you have to be very aware of. If you cannot kill the person, not just their own HP, but through the Shen shield before the Shen comes in, then you will get it turned around on you.
They do have a bit of vision on Svenskeren. I don't know how much this will allow them to make an engage work here or a pick. TSM waiting for WildTurtle to come back, so Biofrost roaming around with Svenskeren, keeps him safe. It looks like top side will be the idea for Chaser since he knows bot has Rengar. Let's go again for top, and we'll see what we can do. But it's already been warded out. TSM are starting to read this.
Yeah, so he's actually just going up to force him off the minion wave again. This has been their plan a lot of the time. Put pressure on the turret, zone him off the minions, moving 3 topside. They're going for a first turret. They're not actually hoping to kill him here, and they should be able to grab the first turret. TSM already on the trade for Dragon, though.
Ssumday give him a little what for. He'll be perfectly fine on this one. So the Infernal Drake for top side, not too bad. Good thing it's an Infernal. Always feels pretty good to trade a turret for that.
So it's essentially trading power now for power later. You give 650 gold to Ssumday. You are putting your eggs in that basket. You must have some sort of payoff from him because otherwise the Infernal is more worthwhile in the long trade. Look at the respect.
Completely pushed off, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't know where Bjergsen is, and they know that Rengar was bot side. They were very afraid of the dive. They're a little less afraid now that Bjergsen is shown, but they still think that Rengar is on that bot side, and they may just end up giving up the turret.
The true shot barrage is out, so they can get the wave clear.
Ooh, that turret is low. They got to finish the
Turtle's going to fight for the turret easy. There comes the submarine on Svenskeren. They're going to be in. Lot goes very low and then goes down. Summoners used in the bot lane save flash for Dignitas, but also from TSM.
Yeah, Dignitas really misplayed that bot lane play. You either have to A, fight for the minion wave very hard so you have the turret to defend you, or B, back off completely. They kind of did half and half. So
see it again.
Watch the minion wave. The minion wave is too healthy, so Turtle is going to focus down the turret before they go for the fight. This now means there's no chance of them surviving and turning it around, so they either need to back off earlier or contest the minion wave more heavily.
Ssumday hanging out on the bot side now, his TP down. And Hauntzer is still able with a little bit of global pressure from his being up for the stand united use. 3-1 here for TSM. Gold lead isn't too far off. We did see first turret going for that dragon, so they've been able to hold the gold.
Yeah, things are looking pretty even. Slightly in TSM's favor with that Infernal, a little bit of a gold lead. It's also key for TSM that their first Rengar ultimate, first Stand United, did pay off. That's something you want to get rolling, but Hauntzer could be in trouble here.
There it is. Put a few more people on him. He won't be able to get out if he can't use his abilities. But armor becomes his next. The Sunfire Cape coming in soon.
Yeah, but first you don't succeed, try again. Hauntzer has been getting camped pretty hard this game. Honestly, it's impressive that he's not down that much. He has a couple assists to his name, only 1 death. He has been doing well with all the focus that Dignitas has put on him. And Shen is a champion that it's not like this is a Fiora that you put behind. You put a Shen behind, who still will have his uses.
Building that armor. A little more lower in cost, so he'll be able to find the items that he needs. Hauntzer will always find that opening for the fight. 12 minutes in. Looks like now mid lane might be a bit of a focus here as Ssumday's waiting for that teleport to come back up to really activate any fight. Mountain Drake also on the board next, so we'll have teams focusing down there with Dig. A little bit more pressure with the turret focus.
Yeah, they're just trying to shove in these lanes. and get that rolling. You know, one thing I don't love about the strategy from Dignitas is I struggle to see a world in which Ssumday gets so far ahead that he's actually just, you know, killing Hauntzer under his turret or pushing down the turrets very easily. So it's going to have to be kind of a team fight advantage that they do get, because they're putting so much emphasis on Ssumday, but he has not gotten any kills. He has not really turned it into much. So now there's so much on the mid-game team fights. Cop talked about the fact that they like Ezreal for mid-game power spike. It's going to be on Black Cleaver on Ssumday, Triforce on Laud, hit these 2-item power spikes of Black Cleaver Titanic and Triforce plus Muramana, and then team fight. And if you don't smash then, it starts to look a little bit rough.
Laud falling behind as well. We have to keep track that that spike's going to hit with the rest of the team. Only has about 100 or so gold on him right now. So building back up, right to the face of Chaser. Has the ability to repel out. There's the TP coming in from Ssumday. This is what they wanted, the return fight. Exactly where Cassiopeia shines.
Rengar's looking for Chaser. We'll see if he actually wants to commit.
Ooh, Xpecial stays out, plays it, boxes him in, locks him up. Can they give him the death sentence now? He goes on to Laud for the help, but he can't get the range, he can't get the kill, and the rest of
Ssumday's on Turtle!
Now looking for another fight. A beautiful W on the Turtle. Cole and connection here. The slice and dice forward from Ssumday to keep him in range, to keep the team and the cavalry fighting. Great job by Dignitas. 3 down for TSM.
With how that fight started, TSM really had no business going back in, and Svenskeren is ulting onto Thresh, a tanky support. He is expending his ultimate for that, and Dignitas turns it around on them so hard. Keane comes in, and Dig comes up big. That's exactly what they wanted.
Very, very nice, especially since we said kind of Laud was out of that spike zone. For them to win this fight was very, very big.
Yeah, this is a very big one fight. Ssumday comes up huge. Keane with a great ultimate. Biofrost is already down, and this is where TSM needs to say, hey, you know what? We lost the fight. Instead, you commit your ultimate onto the support. You cannot even take him out. All of the targets are free-firing. Ssumday is in the mix, doing a lot of damage, who has gotten that focus for the team, able to just chase in, take out WildTurtle very quickly here, and the chase is on. Once the threats are down for TSM, they will always run you down with such a mobile comp, like the Ezreal, like the Renekton, and then that is exactly what they wanted.
Whew. Dignitas out of the gates with 2 control wards in just about every inventory. They're going to start moving this vision up, and hopefully they can protect it. We've seen a lot of teams try to do that, move their vision up, think they have it, but the vision gets cleared, then they're left with a dark map and fall behind once again. Very important to keep that up.
Yeah, vision is not a one-time thing. Your whole team has to be participating in the vision game the entire game long. Even if you're not the one placing the wards, it's creating pressure so your support can place the wards. It's assisting your support so they can place the wards. Things like this are massive in League of Legends.
Yep. We see it happen here at TSM. They've set theirs up. Dignitas feels obviously more powerful after that fight. Slowly encroaching more onto the other side of the map. And here is the Mountain Drake that they'll be able to take away from TSM.
Yeah, they really want to continue to keep up the pressure, force around objectives, get advantages now, because they are at one of their strongest points. One thing also for Dignitas that is very good, although Renekton is more of an early mid-game champion, Cassio is not. Most of their kills have gone to the Cassiopeia, who is a very big late-game threat. The Ezreal also super powerful in the late game, but TSM has the edge in split push pressure with the Shen later in the game. They have Azir, which is incredibly powerful, and I think has the matchup edge against a Cassio. So if Bjergsen plays it well, it's tough for Cassio to get in.
It always seems like Bjergsen is on one of those champions. He'll be playing the Orianna, he'll be playing the Azir. You get him at 40 minutes, he hits that ult, the shockwave, the Emperor's Divide, and the team just gets all sorts of chaos, and TSM comes out with a big fight.
And I think that's one of the scary things about a team like this, the star power of a player like Bjergsen, knowing that he always has the chance to carry a game, even in which he's behind, sometimes puts additional pressure on teams to feel like, we have to do something now. We have to close it out before he gets to that point.
Sometimes that choice is to go for Baron. It's not a good idea. Teams do that.
We've seen a Baron throw a time or two in North American LCS.
It's been 6 years. I've seen a few. 17 minutes into this one, 28 to 26K here. And Dignitas with that lead. It's like they are just trying to formulate something else around the map. Obviously going to have to give up top. the outer ring of turrets is basically just a tit for tat now. Bot might stay up a little bit longer. Ssumday and Hauntzer are defending that one, but we'll see this mid focus on Bjergsen start pretty soon. You can see it's a little hurt already.
Yeah, it's really tough if Hauntzer is willing to sit back and take a CS deficit to actually bully him out and go on that turret. If you step up on a turret, he will taunt you under it. You cannot win that kind of a fight. So they're looking for the neutral objectives to get edges. I actually think this would not be a bad game for Dignitas to look at something like a Rift Herald in, because that is a neutral objective that you could perhaps force a fight around, or at least emphasize the strengths of your team by getting the Renekton more powerful now.
I bet you Ssumday would love that. Be able to stay out on the side lane for just ever. Continue to fight Hauntzer, a little more advantage. Tiamat finished for him, Tabi there. And like we said, that Black Cleaver is finished up. Very close for Lod on his Triforce now, as he's recipeing together the pieces. Once again, Dignitas moves in, feels comfortable with the pressure on the map to deny wards. We'll see how much damage they can get on this turret.
And they're going to get some good damage down. Not sure if they'll be able to kill it on this wave if TSM wants to aggressively fight for it. And they are going to go.
Oh, the hook in from Xpecial throws it off to his left shoulder. He's the focus now. Taunt into Xpecial here, but this gives Dignitas the entire time to say, look at him focus Xpecial. We'll take this, we'll take this. No, we disengage. Great choice.
Yeah, and Ssumday has the wave shoved in the bot lane, so they are losing those minions right now. It is a disengage. Not a big advantage for either team. That was an incredible hook from Xpecial, though.
Get that sixth sense. Able to hook it out. Don't see any controls towards that top side, so. You see that replay once again when it comes up. Dignitas actually formulating well in the fight. It seems like everybody knew that, yeah, Xpecial may go down here, and that's just going to have to happen. We do have pressure on mid-turret. We'll be fine if he goes down kind of thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if your support goes down, if they have committed too many abilities, too many summoners to taking him out, then you will be able to win the fight afterwards. That is the beautiful hook from Xpecial. Multiple ultimates committed to him, and now TSM knows Svenskeren's out of the fight. Keane has a lot of pressure. Ssumday did go for the flank and was actually ejected there by Bjergsen, so that is kind of what forces the fight to trail off. TSM can no longer commit. Dignitas can't either. At least TSM gets the summoners from Xpecial, though, so that is something that they can look towards later.
You see TSM trying to throw down a ton of wards in mid, but Dignitas is going to have a few seconds to themselves to be able to take down that turret. They'll hover back, help Keane out getting blue. Once he gets back, everything's looking great for Dignitas right now. The gold lead hasn't separated all that much. TSM has still been able to do well in the laning phase and get themselves those turrets when they need it.
They really have, and some of the advantages that in farm that they have are pretty evened out by strengths elsewhere. So Turtle is quite a bit ahead of the CS, so is Ssumday, but they're on Bjergsen.
Locked up under the turret, flashes out, didn't really have enough follow-up damage there with just Keane. Chaser was trying to fire through.
Yeah, the exhaust was critical from Bjergsen there, reducing the main damage threat, and they're not able to finish him off, which is so big. If you take out Bjergsen there, you can look to threaten some major objectives, especially with Cassiopeia. Even though it is very early in the game, if you get a big fight, the threat of Baron is very real.
Might have to think twice about giving respect here to Dignitas, though. A few of the hooks from Xpecial hitting with, seems like, oh, this won't be enough range, or this won't be a consideration we have to take. But TSM's gonna think twice now.
Yeah, Xpecial has been having himself a good game, and it's always that pick potential from Thresh. You have to show so much respect to it, especially because he's not flank cleansed, right? Bjergsen blows his summoners there. He's very vulnerable now. If you get flanked without summoners, Ssumday comes crashing in. If you get hit by one crowd control, you can expect the others to follow up.
Yep. Yesterday, as Tom Kench and Zyra actually was finding quite good openings there, so I expect to see a few more hooks from him today that kind of throw TSM for a loop here. Give Dignitas an opening. Infinity Edge finished up WildTurtle with his Hurricane, so he can put out some damage now once they lock down these targets.
I think Thresh is a really interesting champion, and it's kind of one of those ones that is a good comparison of these range supports versus the melee supports. So Thresh hooks your carry, and you win a fight off that, great. But what if he hooks a tank? His contribution is so much lower, and then when you compare that to something like Karma, who just shields every time and always has a certain level of contribution, it may be lower than the high impact Thresh can reach, but it is higher than the low impact that Thresh can sometimes have too. It's consistency for potential trade-off of impact.
Another Mountain Drake going over to Dignitas.
And with the Cassiopeia, that just increases the threat. Hauntzer is split pushing though, and Dignitas needs to answer this or get something more from it. because they're losing 2 turrets for a Dragon, which is not a good trade.
This is where TSM seems to be able to capitalize. You kind of wait on watching what Dignitas will do, but TSM has said, you know what, Drag's going to come up. Dig's focusing Drags. I bet you can we can kind of play off the ball here and go turret, turret. Will they get that focus?
And that is something that's kind of gained from the global advantage that TSM had. So Ssumday's teleport is just coming up now, but he wanted to be bot side by the Dragon in case TSM looked for a fight. Hauntzer has his global up, so he can go up to the top side and get that turret, because he can always join in a fight very easily if they decide to go for it.
Really playing the composition well. Shen was something they grabbed up for Hauntzer. I believe nice and early for them, and then it was Ashe and the Rengar.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually their first pick, I do believe, or first round at least.
He has been seeing a little bit of love in the NALCS now. The ability to go across map here and start controlling the plays early towards the mid game is really taking effect.
And when the other superior tanks get nerfed, you become better.
Yep.
Straight up. Maokai is not the dominant force it once was. While it is very strong and has its defined strengths, it also has pretty clear weaknesses now in its laning.
23.5 minutes in, Lod is quite close at 670 on his tier of 750. Usually you see that right about now for players. A few minutes before if they're going real fast on it. So that power spike would be nice. Neandry's finished up here for Chaser. They can start to tear through a little bit of Hauntzer's HP. And it looks like TSM is happy with just kind of setting up after the last few turrets they took. And see what Dignitas has.
And Dignitas is really going to try to emphasize Baron Vision and control around that objective right now, because they are completing some very big item timings. And you know, Ezreal should be stronger than the Ashe at this point. You should have Renekton outclassing the Shen, right? You have these very strong champions right now. And if you can control Vision, get a pick, and take that Baron, that is how you extend your mid-game advantage into a late-game win.
Vision galore. They're setting up a security system over here. TSM, power of numbers of their own, is going to go ahead and clear that one out.
Well, this is what you're always going to have to battle against in the rest of the game. Is Hauntzer will always be in a side lane because he can join in very easily. He will constantly pressure these waves, make it so somebody wants to be over there looking for a pick, looking for a fight, but he doesn't have the ability to because he has to answer the waves here from...
I feel like it's become such a bad spot now for Dignitas. They come out with somewhat winning lanes, a pretty strong early game, and then that one turret take kind of throws them for a loop here. And they can't seem to find another in. They just had the wards. All of those wards are now cleared out.
Yeah.
Everything they just did in that time.
I don't love when teams go in for these big warding missions and then just immediately cede control of the area.
Right.
If you're not actually maintaining that area and defending the vision, then it's not really worth much, right? They go and they drop all these wards. Look, great, they're doing the right step. But then TSM just walks right back in and takes them all out.
A lot of it.
Oh, this could be a counter gank. They don't see Chaser coming. Can Ssumday live?
One out, uses the other dice. Nicely done to dodge the bola. A little bit of pressure to the bot side, but it was also drawing Dignitas, so nothing really gained off of this. Top side is pretty much clashing, but will push a bit in favor of Dignitas here as they meet once more.
Yeah, all Dignitas really gets out of that is the fact that Svenskeren used his ultimate, but it's such a short cooldown with the Black Cleaver that it's not of much concern. You know, it's under a minute on that cooldown, so we will have it up probably before a fight, but if you ever can force in that gap, Rengar's certainly a lot weaker.
See Lod chatting it up on the screen. Saying probably Bjergsen's top. They're going to get that lane pushed in now, so TSM may look to actually work something across the map here.
I think this is also something interesting to note is that Ssumday did not decide to actually complete his Titanic or anything like that. He built a Randuin's and likely going straight into a GA to focus more on team fighting and being able to dive very aggressively, try to take out those threats and have your second life to come back. And this is something that's going to be stronger for team fighting but weaker for the split push. So he doesn't feel like he is getting the kind of advantage he needs in the side lanes, and I tend to agree.
If you can just get, we saw it in the one fight, onto Turtle, onto the back line, causing so much disruption. He did it yesterday as well, playing, kind of taking teams off of the Baron when they went for Baron.
But look at this, once again, someone must answer Hauntzer. So now Dignitas is being forced. They either force the Baron and make Hauntzer come in, or they just give up a bottom tier 2 for free. And at this point in the game, you really cannot do that. So they're straight onto the Baron. TSM must react, but Rengar ultimate is up. Shen ultimate is there. They're going to go for the 50-50, it looks like.
There's the teleport in. It does go over to Chaser. That's going to be the teleport in.
Ssumday
Chaser
zoning
goes down
outside.
immediately. Ssumday in a 2v1. Svenskeren gets hit up. He's getting the fangs and he goes down. Bjergsen gets into the fight and he can't even take down Ssumday right now, which means the fight can continue in favor of Dignitas. Xpecial, no flash hook coming forward. They still have Emperor's Divide and a bit of disengage here on TSM, so Dignitas once again take the advantage they have and start pushing that.
That was very risky from Dignitas. If they miss the smite, it's a disaster. They hit it though, and it can pay off big time. Big risks sometimes pay off in big rewards.
Becomes so scary when you have that good of an early game and then almost are kind of forced to 50-50 the situation here, 28 minutes in.
Yeah, they just couldn't find a better opening from
Right.
TSM. And the fact that they had been kind of outplayed macro-wise, Hauntzer was bot, they were put between a rock and a hard place. They essentially had to force there or accept a loss. They forced. It pays off in this situation as Chaser nails the smite.
It's like finding the best scenario in a bad situation.
Yeah.
They were just far enough away, only a few got in. You gotta cut your losses and then get the wins.
We'll see if they can force again around this objective. All summoners are pretty much available across the board, so it would be an explosive team fight. Oh, TSM is going for the dragon. They're going to run up the middle and try to get an inhibitor here. We'll see if TSM can base in time. They have really been out-rotated.
Wasn't much of a minion wave in mid lane, so they said they're not going with the 3 minions. No, they are. They're going to use that to take down an inhibitor turret as well. It could be a flank from Svenskeren. Everything is up for him. He'd have to activate, and they would know to head high side on
Not
this.
up, though. It's not up for a little bit, and that is kind of what's stopping him from pulling the trigger.
Yep.
Without the Shen ult, Rengar going in solo will not pay off because summoners are available. They know the exhaust is there.
Nice wave.
Dignitas is doing great with this Baron, rotating up the top now, looking for their third turret in just under a minute or two. Very nice moves from Dignitas.
This lane, the last time we saw it was being pushed by Bjergsen.
Now they want Keane to go top of the arrow.
Face. There's the teleport. They're just behind. Right to the backside. Keane with a great flash! Gets himself out. Saracen Grace on as well. And they're going to start trying to back this one out. They know they don't have an engage on that front line or enough damage to tear through Hauntzer and Svenskeren. And Dignitas make it out. That top turret almost falling as well.
They get out with those summoners, but Keane will be extremely vulnerable in the next fight. His Seraphs is down. He has no summoners. They will look to attack him again because the Shen and Rengar ultimates are much lower cooldown than the ones that were blown by Keane.
I think everybody's fingers hovering flash when you hear that Rengar ult. You're like, all right, I'm ready to flash.
Yeah, is it me? Is it me? I think it's me.
Keane was quite quick on that with the assistance of his team. And the communication in these tight spots from Dignitas is much cleaner than we've seen before this season.
Yeah, they're looking pretty strong so far, and I think that they should head bot side, look to clean up some more of these outers with the remaining time on their Baron. They should at least be able to get that tier 1 bot side. That is kind of some low-hanging fruit. Grab the gold up from that. Because still they have opened up the mid lane, but it's very difficult to siege upwards into the Azir.
Yeah.
So even without that turret, it's still a tough attack on that inhibitor.
So you're just giving an idea for Svenskeren to get in the side with Hauntzer.
Yeah.
Got to get down that mid lane.
Exactly. The flank opportunities are very high. Bjergsen can simply set up soldiers along that kind of act as their own turret. You have the Sun Disc that he can bring up there too temporarily. So Azir is one of the toughest champions to siege directly into. That is why you need to play around objectives and look for flanks.
Oh, Ssumday has that GA. He can be a little more risky in his play. Over the wall. Already got an attack on that ward. They did see him coming around as they placed it.
But even the threat of that means TSM was not willing to fight over that tier 1 turret. That is the right choice, but it gives Dignitas some of that gold they were looking for. And these are smart positioning plays that are also responded to well, but still result in an advantage for Dig.
Solid power play out of that. 302 from Keane in the mid lane. He's been having solid games for himself. Along with Ssumday, Chaser's been able to provide good things for top and that mid lane, but they don't seem to come up with a victory. They don't seem to come up with a result. They've actually had really great, they've done a great job at getting over the humps in this game. They had that lead, TSM came back, and then they got back over that hump with TSM in the lead. It did, albeit with the Baron, it was quite risky, but the calls after that as well showed that Dignitas knew they had a lead and were able to force it. Something they're very hesitant about. They always sit back, and they actually give the other team a chance to find an error in their play.
This is a team that was super hyped up at the start of the season with Ssumday coming in.
Yeah.
And then kind of felt like they fall off a cliff a little bit. Hauntzer maybe getting caught out here. We'll see if they have the damage to actually take him down. Both teams are collapsing. This could be good for TSM. Dignitas is split very heavily.
Taunt in. Hauntzer gets Xpecial. They take him down. And they did seem to bite off more than they could chew on that.
Yeah, Dignitas cannot take that fight without Keane in position. He is their strongest team fight member right now. So sacrificing your support, not something you want to do, but something you must do to avoid a worse loss.
This puts so much TSM in the driver's seat once again here. The inhibitor down,
With
hasn't really done too much. Lod, looks like he took a deep breath before he dodged that one. He's like, I gotta consider where this one's falling first.
And that is smart by Lod. Way too many people just see, oh god, arrow, and they shift backwards and still get hit. So you go to the side, that's how you dodge out. I'm gonna have the side-to-side movement.
6 out of 7, doing well. I mean, it becomes one of those skills. If you're not finding pressure from not having that skill, right? You fire an ult, sometimes you get engaged on. If you have the ability to just fire that arrow whenever you want, keep doing it.
Certainly.
Those engages are so great.
I think it's always worth trying, especially if you are going Essence Reaver build. Yeah. Turtle this game is going for more of an auto attack focused build, so there's a little bit more cost to the arrow because of the longer cooldown. But that said, what he loses there, he makes up for with auto attack damage in the team fights.
3 item now for Lod. It's also gone for Ninja Tabi's actually trying to stay alive in the instant attacks coming in from Svenskeren.
It doesn't want to get bursted down.
Yep.
And if he can stay alive through the initial fight, the mobility, the lifesteal he has will kind of carry him through the rest of it. That is the bet that he is making. It's still a bit of a trade-off that I'm not completely sold on because Lucidity Boots not only give you the CDR to use extra abilities, but they give you Summoner Spell cooldown reduction.
Right.
And how much is the extra flash and heal worth? You know, having that up when you otherwise wouldn't. Right back to Baron. TSM bot side, they will need to rush this, but Dignitas kills it so fast it might just be dead before they arrive.
Svenskaren's in. Can he save it? Svenskeren! Solo mission into the pit. Biofrost is there. Xpecial and him shielding each other in the support wars.
Keane on Bjergsen.
And Bjergsen 1v1 almost. As Xpecial and the rest of the team were getting bopped up. Hauntzer's going to try to do what he can to hold Dig back from finding any more TSM members.
Dignitas may be able to actually try to end. They're going to try to push up. Bjergsen got away. That is probably what just saved the game for them. Dignitas may not go for the end, but look at this play from Svenskeren. Fantastic stuff. He has to flash the hook, gets in range, smite, steal, nail. But still, Dignitas has such powerful team fighting. Even just the fact that they forced them there was massive. And now Dignitas is pinging back towards the base. They really do want to get a lot out of this, but with Bjergsen alive, he should be able to wave clear and limit the loss to just the inhibitor.
Those intense moments can really tell a lot. The majority of the members in the pit on the replay you saw turned to Svenskeren, which cuts their burst damage for Chaser's smite and his Q kill. And then it just becomes the Rengar. Svenskeren comes away huge for TSM.
Yeah, it's those quick reactions, quick decisions, and they're trying to rush the Infernal, but the Rengar ultimate is already back up. TSM on the way.
In a bad spot. He's the caboose. Great job by Ssumday. Do not leave your mid laner out by himself. Waiting for that shift to come back up. Almost needed the Dark Passage. And TSM bite back so hard with that Baron. Put themselves in the lead once again.
Double Infernal on TSM there as well. Dignitas really wanted to even that up so that TSM didn't have the edge. Instead, they end up 16% AD AP ahead. That is a big one. This has been such a game of inches. I mean, if Bjergsen goes down in that ensuing Baron fight, he lived with, what, 10% health? Maybe one extra auto attack here or there if it could have been played a little bit better. Could have meant that Dignitas walks down mid, ends the game. Instead, they are now in the driver's seat with the Baron buff with double Infernal.
So crazy that TSM can just continue to do this. Dignitas still has a very scary fight, but when TSM turns it on, it's very hard to turn it off. They are now going to head around the horn, have Hauntzer clear out that bot lane. Top is going to have a massive wave in a little bit for them. So they just have to buy some time here. Looks like they're actually going to give that top wave some help.
Oh, trying to steal that blue away.
Yeah.
It's 50-50. I mean, first time worked out for Dignitas. Second time, You know, it's Svenskeren that
it's
comes
50-50,
up.
right?
Yeah, there you go. Mathematically proven. It's science.
We use statistics. 3 dragons now to 2 here. TSM actually been able to get those in their favor, as well as they surge back onto the map after a few went down on the Baron side. And now this minion wave crashing into the top. Looks like it is going to be Ssumday pulled over a little early here. And Hauntzer may just go ahead, make sure he's gone, and keep pushing his bot side. He may even follow, though. Follow the leader.
And it's actually pretty amazing to note that despite Keane being 4-0-4 and Bjergsen only having the 1 kill participation whatsoever, they're actually just tied in gold because Bjergsen has been farming out sideways a lot. He's been picking up more and more of that farm, and that is making up for the difference. So TSM very strong at this point, and Dignitas may have a lot of trouble defending. That was close on Bjergsen.
This top lane, maybe the first inhibitor to go down. We have to remember what happened here in the early part of the game. A lot of focus onto Hauntzer, which he was actually able to deny more of the kills than going down. He only's gone down 3 times, and that was mainly out of lane. And remember, the second time, third time they went up, Ssumday actually went down for the troubles, and that really started to hurt Dig early.
Yeah, I mean, Hauntzer has maintained, you know, he is at a CS deficit, but he's the same level.
Yeah.
He's just about even in gold, and not really a big difference there. 800 gold, 38 minutes into the game is not massive. So Hauntzer is super relevant, and when you attack someone who has baseline effectiveness that is very high, it sometimes doesn't pay off.
We also said he'd be down a bit because of that pressure, but Shen, you're Shen.
Yep.
He has all the items he needs. He knew he would find the resources, and the team has also helped him get some too with wards and clearing the lane out.
Shen also gets a lot of time to catch up because he's a split push type champion. You're solo in the side waves, you get a lot of XP. Even when you're down on farm, you can often catch up on levels that way.
All right, what options do we have here on the side of Dignitas? 6 turrets down for them. Like the same on the other side, so we got to get wards. Where's the flank going to happen? Or the wait?
I think for Dig, a lot of it is about controlling vision and either forcing a fight in an advantageous location, like around an objective, or looking for a pick. When you've drafted so heavily into pick with things like Elise and Thresh, you need to be able to execute on that to actually win a fight. Otherwise, the baseline effectiveness of things like the Karma and the Rengar are just too high.
Let's remember the Thresh, the Elise, very, very common plays for TSM as well in the past. And you remember them sitting in a brush waiting for the cocoon into a hook, then that pick. We haven't really seen Dignitas actually hang out in any brush yet. Try to get those picks. They're all roaming around in the open to make TSM more privy of where they are.
And I think another thing that is very important in these team fights is actually watching which tank controls space better. If Ssumday can zone Bjergsen out of a fight while Keane is free firing, Dignitas can win that fight. But if Bjergsen is able to stay safe and control the space with his soldiers, it's very tough for Keane to ever enter, right? So you have to control the Azir for your Cassiopeia to have success.
Bjergsen is getting to that success point for himself. It could be that one fight where the Azir explodes with an Emperor's Divide and the soldiers start wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
Looks like it might be a Abyssal Scepter for him next. Void Staff, Rylai's. Rabadon's already finished up. Rabadon's coming in for Keane. Things are going to get quite messy here.
Keane on the Cassio still has some room to grow because you don't have to buy the boots. You get an extra item slot.
True.
So you can have that extra time to keep scaling up, which will be useful for him. And there's obviously some different opinions on which your last item should be. He certainly will get a death cap as one of those two, but do you go Zhonya's a little bit more defensive to survive Rengar and things like that? Or picking up something like a Luden's Echo, the more aggressive option to say, you know what, I catch Bjergsen for 1 second, I'll take him out.
Trying a little bit. Not trying too hard, couldn't clear the distance. But they do have TSM backed out.
And Dignitas can run up mid and try to go for the inhibitor, but they are corralling themselves in, and they are committing themselves to a team fight. Bjergsen can raise a turret back here and have Dignitas sectioned off. So they have now fully committed to this. They must get the inhibitor and find a way out or win the fight.
Xpecial gets hit first, not a terrible target. Oh my word, he gets absolutely obliterated. Keane's right on the front. He's next. And Dignitas has just jumped into the ring with TSM and does not look like they're going to make it out alive. Ssumday going down now as the last mainly because he's one of the tankiest. Bot lane pushing in. TSM is going to come out of this one with lanes to push already inside of Dignitas' base.
I think this is actually just the game, Riv. With that mini wave in the bot side, they could run straight down there. TSM is making their way down. The res timers are so long. Ssumday down for 50 seconds. This very likely is it for TSM.
Holding on the entire game. Dignitas having openings, finding the Baron, but then giving TSM the chance for that Baron, and now the Nexus turrets. 42 minutes in, 10-11. Hard fought from both sides, but it always seems like TSM grabs the macro game and controls it throughout the series. Game 1 going to TSM. We may have 2 more.
Dignitas takes a rough call there at the end. They get the inhibitor, but TSM get the game. That is just so risky what Dignitas tried to pull off there. It felt like they didn't think they could make a pick. They tried to make a risky play. And I mean, they walk straight up, they get the inhibitor, but TSM is able to so easily win that fight off of a nice pick onto Xpecial. He goes down. With him already out of the fight, there's no exhaust, there's no peel to actually protect Keane. So Keane gets taken out by the Shen Rengar combo, and that's lights out.
First death. That was his first death.
First death all game is the one that counts.
4-0 and 4 up until they fought that. They went for that inhibitor, and all game long as well. They kind of made it out. That's what we said. Made out laning safe, laning phase pretty safe, doing well. Able to give Ssumday a little bit, but not too much. And it just seemed like nothing really was able to play out for them. And then you have the thing they can look back at, the glaring mistake of the Baron. So it's not like what did we do wrong here? It's just where did we do wrong in the beginning that made us have to go for those Barons?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because they played the early game out pretty well, but TSM just didn't give them any big openings to actually close it. So they didn't feel like they knew how else to close the game besides going for the Baron. They force around it. It doesn't pay off the second time, and TSM's able to hold on, and then eventually, 1-1 team fight, 42 minutes into the game, spells the end.
Speaking of closing the game, 41-30 in.
And this is,
like you said, they didn't even really have to set up the turret. They just were all out in the fight. They knew it was going to be in the base.
I mean, Dignitas painted themselves into a corner. Xpecial takes that arrow and just dies from so far away with the Azir damage. With him down, as I said, there's no one to protect Keane. So he was almost always going to fall to that combo.
Yeah.
And I mean, Keane was the big carrying factor in these fights. So their positioning was kind of out of whack. Half the people are up trying to hit the inhibitor. They're not back with their battle lines formed. So Ssumday's off on the side hitting the inhibitor instead of down peeling for his carries. The whole fight was out of whack, and that's often what can happen when you make these split-second risky late-game calls. It's not something that you have practiced in scrims. It's not like you're like,
just gonna
we're in this situation where they're moving down and their inhibitor turret is dead, so now we naturally execute plan 3, and it's like you haven't practiced it.
Exactly. Yeah, we each go in and we grab aggro of the Nexus turret and come back. Yeah, you just don't know what to do there, and you saw how chaotic it got.
And it kind of comes back to what Reggie was talking about at the start of the season. Why he thinks teams like Dignitas don't work out is the mixed language teams, split communication. Even if people can learn the language and speak it, pretty well, if you're not fluent, it's very tough in the most intense moments, the one that are not practiced, to have clear, concise communication where you're all exactly on the same page, and you need to be in a play like that.
Yep. Well, we'll see what happens in game 2. For more on that comeback win from TSM, let's hand it over to our analysts.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great cast today so far. Once again, here with Mark Z. Hey, we're on a different stream. They don't know us yet.
I was like, same intro, all right.
I get to reuse it. If you watch VODs, then you know I've been biting myself off. So let's talk about this match. Pretty interesting one. Team Dignitas versus TSM. A very close one, actually. And team comp on the screen going to be in a second. We see some Renekton against a tank matchup. And it's a matchup that Ssumday, I think, can win early on. He can snowball on and be a good individual threat, and Dig played around that well.
Yeah, and I think when you look at what they were going for in the early game, it was kind of like, typical Dignitas. They have Elise and Renekton, 2 of the best early game diving champions. So what are they going to do? They're going to play around Ssumday. They went up there very often early on. They took the first turret, pressuring Hauntzer off it, while they were basically giving away an Infernal Drake to TSM. That was the trade they were going for.
Which I think it's a good trade.
I think depending on what you're trying to do, it is a good trade. And if you're trying to get more gold onto your top side, carry Ssumday to carry you, then yeah, that's fine. The problem is that right after that, TSM forces a dive in the bot lane, which goes horribly, horribly wrong for Dignitas, and they fall behind, and it's like, okay, typical Dignitas.
Yeah, and I feel like that's actually more on Laud and Xpecial for not respecting, like, I wonder if Rengar Shen's going to 4-man dive. Oh, they did, wow, weird how they did the predictable play. So, you know, in both cases, like, maybe the teams could have done better to defend themselves, but you're right, TSM did a pretty good job of being proactive in the mid-game to catch back up. But what I want to start really filtering in on is Team Dignitas having a pretty good proactive mid-game. Like, I want to give them a lot of credit in this postgame because they were winning against TSM for a large portion of it. Our first major replay is 27-30. It's Team Dignitas kind of turning around a fight and getting the Baron here.
Right, I mean, this is one of the first times that you see them really going for risky Barons. Team Dignitas is an extremely careful team that basically relies on any mistakes, and here they're fine trying to force this 50-50 Baron. It's not clean, it's not what you hope to see. Svenskeren did have a chance to steal it, did not quite get it, and then it just ends up being a 1-for-1. But what was really impressive after this was they didn't let up off the the gas there. They took that, they went mid lane, they grabbed the inhibitor turret, rotate up to the top side, and they were able to effectively use the Baron aggressively to keep getting their lead. So that it was nice to see that like they kept the parts of their old Dignitas that we've seen in previous weeks where it's really heavily around Ssumday, and even the way they came back in the game was punishing a TSM over aggression invade. But then once they had the lead, they showed that they're starting to make more plays.
Right, so I'm glad they're doing more plays, but you're right, the actual process of executing is still not very clean, right? You saw Svenskeren could have stolen, he got over the wall, and in fact the next replay is when he does actually steal it away, and it's where the throw actually finally happens here, because they're trying to catch up, but again, if you can't land every smite, this will happen to you.
Yeah, I mean, Team Dignitas really did need to make plays. They're going to get heavily outscaled in this comp. Once again, forcing a kind of 50-50 Baron where they're not able to stop the Rengar from getting into the pit. This time he does get the steal, and despite the team fight not actually going that bad for Dignitas, they need to be winning these harder. They need to actually be kind of snowballing this game, and this stalled out for TSM, bought them time to go, and I think they got another Infernal off the back of this as well. So that basically was just the final nail in the coffin for like the Azir, Ashe, Shen, Rengar comp to become stronger.
Yeah, and I mean, that fight was a 3-for-1 that, right, if you give Dig Baron, they win the game. It's over. Like, they beat TSM. So, like, you know, unlucky. You can't completely blame Chaser for this, of course, but yeah, we got to see more out of them. I mean, the damage graph is pretty nice. Obviously, you have an Infinity Edge Ashe doing plenty of damage. The Azir is still coming in occasionally for Bjergsen, looks great overall, and we can start talking about TSM. You know, able to withstand all that pressure, right? Props to Sven for getting the steals. Props to the two backline carries, basically, because Rengar's not going to really team fight late game that well. Those guys put in the damage to make that work because they're fighting these team fights with 1,000 gold differences and getting the damage they need.
Sure, after they kind of threw that initial invade, they did a decent job stalling out. Aside from the one mistake where they give up the inhibitor, it felt like that was something they might have been able to defend. But if that's the worst thing that's going to happen for you in that game, that's not that bad. And then they did have that great punish where you know, Dignitas kind of forced themselves to get pinned into TSM's base, and then the easy collapse and fight for TSM sealed it.
Yeah, the simple 5-for-0 just wins the game outright, which you saw at the very end of the game, of course. Player of the game, want to give those honors to Hauntzer for his split pushing and his late game team fighting. A lot of those Shen ults either preventing the deaths or just creating the hard dives that start the fights out. In both cases, he did very well on the Shen, that even though we are seeing priority on things like Renekton, obviously the tanks can still be very, very valuable.
Right, he received a ton of early attention. He went down once after forcing that like play bottom, then when he was going back topside, they were still waiting for him, they killed him. But other than that, he played a lot of the game out well, was a huge annoyance in the split push because he has that double global, so he was able to force Dignitas into some of these situations where they are like, all right, well, let's go do this Baron because we kind of have to.
And yeah, he played well from behind as well, right? Got all that pressure, lost his turret, and managed to be effective. And so listen to any of you guys who are losing lanes to Renekton, look at what Hauntzer did, and he managed to win the game for his team, at least partially on his own back. So that's going to do it for us for now, but after a quick break, we'll check to see if Team Dignitas can tie up this series against TSM. Stay with us, you're watching the North American LCS. See you soon.
Bjergsen, can you hear me?
Yes, unfortunately.
Wow.
Turtle's gonna fight for the turret easy. There comes the submarine on Svenskeren. They're gonna be in. Laud goes very low and then goes down.
Shen go.
Okay.
Shen go.
I'm going mid, guys.
Shen go. Nice.
Svenskaren's in. Can he save it? Svenskeren! Solo mission into the pit.
We can win this. Cassiopeia. I'm gonna answer. I got answer.
Release,
Just
when she goes down.
Renekton.
Kill Elise, kill Elise, kill Elise, kill Elise.
I flash
Renekton.
Renekton,
No flash. Renekton, no flash.
End the game
Kill
bot.
Elise, kill Elise, kill
End the
Elise.
game bot.
Yeah, end the game bot. End the game
I'm going bot already.
How many of Renekton still?
I'm going bot already.
Okay.
I'm TPing bot. We got this, we got this.